evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the first playoff race of Season 58 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. Last week, at the conclusion of the checkered flag, 13 drivers locked themselves into battling in this season's championship. It's going to be 6 races, 3 rounds. Round 1, the first 2 races begin here tonight. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Jessica Shelton. And Jess, we talk so many times about different drivers with different agendas. Here tonight's going to be no different because, yeah, we got 13 drivers that are going to be battling for the championship, trying to move on to the next round, but there's another 27 odd drivers that they're out here just searching for checkered flags from now till the end of the season.
Yeah, and the one thing we got to look at is the fact that any of these drivers that are not battling for the championship could hinder and maybe get in the way, or maybe slightly make a mistake that costs someone else a point or a position in the championship standing. So they're going to have to really be careful and know exactly where their opponents and what their positions are at all times. But another thing I want to bring up, Seth, is now that the playoffs are starting, compared to the past few weeks of, oh, we gotta make it. Now we're here. That aggressive tendency is going to ramp up quite a bit, being there's only several races, two rounds per, like 2 races per round, and they want to advance as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be a huge weight off the shoulders of a playoff driver here tonight if they go to victory lane, get that golden ticket to advance into the next round. Because you're right. I think that next week and then 2 weeks from then, when we get to those elimination rounds, we're going to see the aggressiveness even ramp up more than what we'll see here tonight in this playoffs opener as the field is gritting up. We're going to show you the 13 drivers that are currently in the playoffs here. And, there's some notable names there. 5 of them former champions: Joe DeSpirito, Josh Metallic, Grant Wesley, Bob Seminara, and, of course, our defending champion, Brian Schilling. But then at the same time, you got a whole host of drivers that, for some of them, like Keith Hughes and Doug Hewlick, they're in the playoffs for the very first time.
But hey, we also got to make a point to comment on what did we hear earlier on in the season? We were talking to Bobby Farrell. Remember,
Right.
Bobby's like, oh, I mean, it's nice. It's really cool to be up here, but I'm not really going for it. I'm just relaxing. I'm enjoying it. Bobby, you're third in the points coming in, and you are in the playoff, and you're position third. Yeah, you have a real shot at this. Now, does your agenda change?
Absolutely. I mean, you and I, we were talking about this before we came on the air. Do you become aggressive and try and go for wins, or do you go for consistency, which is what got Bobby Farrell into the playoffs? And some other drivers fit that bill as well. Rodney Sullins, he was in the Final Four battling for the championship a couple of seasons ago. He was able to point his way in, and I believe this is the second appearance for Kelly Causey in the playoffs. He pointed his way in to the postseason a couple of seasons ago. So, yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how this playoff format now, if it's going to benefit the drivers that are out there aggressively going for wins week after week, or the drivers that just look for those consistencies. I think it was it Donnie Garrett used to say, top 5 them to death? That's kind of what some of these drivers have had for their agendas.
Well, coming into this, we were talking about, possibly these other drivers that are not even in the championship, playing a factor here, trying to get a win, or trying to do something for themselves, just to get up there, and they may end up hindering the other ones. We also got the fact that we got 2 people racing tonight that I don't think they've raced Thursday nights yet. One of them being Denny Carroll, and the other one, I believe, did we just restart?
We did. I do believe that an extra lap of caution was getting added on there. Drivers had the option to drop back, and I think Wayne Pribnow stopped on the track. So,
okay.
I'm here. We have a wreck on the pace lap. I think the 14 was trying to drop back and might have gotten hit from behind. So, continue with your point there.
Well, we got Denny Carroll, and I believe Craig, the 32, I believe is.
Yeah, Craig. Yep.
And then there's and then we got Dante making a start. I mean, the random surprise show up for Dante, but we haven't seen a lot of Dante, being here. We know how Dante is. Dante will just chill, and then randomly there he is. They also got to figure out how they're going to cope with these 2 new drivers as well. I mean, they might have raced them with other series, but in here it's a little bit different, and they're not used to, okay, well, we're going 3 wide. How do you race? How do you drive? That throws a new challenge into the whole thing if they're around them.
We're going to give the starting lineup here in a minute, but I want to just play off of that point you were making and ask, in the case of a Denny Carroll or a Craig Hadley, uh, how do you approach this race knowing that it's the first round of the playoffs? Because, I mean, obviously you want to be competitive. You want to try and see if you can get a checkered flag in this series, but at the same time, you don't want to make a mistake that could possibly, very early on, end a driver's championship hopes.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you can go out there and, show them, like, hey, I can race too, and at the same time, give them enough respect, enough room to work with them, and maybe gain yourself some friends, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's basically always what I was told by, like, Bob Seminara and Joe DeSpirito and Bernie and those guys. At the end of the day, when I was trying to learn and figure stuff out, they would sit there and say, look, it's at the end, go for it. We're not going to be mad at you for going for it. I mean, step out if you want to and try to get the win. That's fine. Work with us a little bit. That's fine. We'll work with you. That's fine. And that's how you build trust. But at the end, you go for it. So these new guys, they gotta give a little bit of respect, a little bit of room, and just be patient. And then if they're at the end, then then we'll figure that out when that moment comes. But
then all bets are off.
So we got like 60-some laps, and I say 60-some laps because there's always that random last lap time of caution that we can get. So
that's true. Yeah, we don't know if the race could end under green or end under caution. Looks like Billy Elliser was slated to be the pole sitter, but he dropped to the back. We're just going to read off the grid based off where the random qualifying ended up having them lined up. So as Elliser was going to be the pole sitter, Richard Martin would be on the outside of the front row, Grant Wesley, Keith Hughes in row 2, row 3 was Rodney Sullins, John Godfrey. Row 4, Robbie Nisus and Doug Hewlick. And then the top 10, Craig Hagley. We talked about him making his debut tonight. He'd be alongside of Jason Scheck. Row 6, Tim Nosker, Dave Melson. Row 7, Donnie Garrett and Bernie Mobbs. Row 8, Glenn Harris, JT Mayhew. Row 9, Wiley Coate and Josh Metallic. And then the top 20 completed by Wayne Pribnow and Dante Ricky. Row 11 finds Chuck McClure and Greg Palmer. Row 12, Bobby Farrell, Ken Roberts. Row 13, Jeremy Jeffries and Terry Bombard. Denny Carroll back in row 14 with Andrew Miller. Row 15 is where we'd find Bob Seminara and Joe DeSpirito. Then it was Jeff Crivello, Brian Lavelle, Mark Paglia, Kelly Causey, Bob Dixon, and Brian Schilling. The field, you see there, the late green. We were told it was going to be a late flying of the green because of the pole sitter Billy Elliser dropping to the back, and it kind of stacked everything up here at the start-finish line.
3 wide already back here going into the corner, Seth. Bob Seminara way up top. Brian Schilling right behind him. They're trying to form that third high line right there, and looks like that high side's coming in. You got Palmer up there. They're moving, Seth.
You have to think that more than likely they're jumping up to that third lane because of the stack up all the way back through the field. You feel it even more in the middle of the pack. So with that loss of momentum, why not go where there's nobody there and maybe see if you can get the momentum moving forward in that top line?
Absolutely. We got to figure out how to get up to the front quick and position ourselves for pit road. Pit road. Pitting, if we do have them under green flag or even call it. There they reckon. Oh, and then trioval South. One's around up in the air, flipping.
Oh, several. That is, I believe,
that
Andrew
Miller.
And Miller got up on
wheels.
wheels.
Flip.
Caution is out.
Brian Lavelle barely makes contact at the end of that.
I believe the 28, I think I saw. Mark Paglia got a piece. There's Wiley Coates.
Was that Mike Rogers I saw in the, was it Mike Rogers or was it, Wayne Pribnow I saw a white vehicle with the
That's
one in it.
Yeah, he's down in the apron there going into turn 1. A little Caesars Ford F-Series. And Kelly Causey got a piece.
Getting what I was trying to get at was you got to try to make your moves to get up there before pit stops or that random caution. That way you gain spots and put yourself in a better situation, as quickly as possible. And kind of jinxed it, didn't I, Seth?
Maybe a little bit. Commentator's curse may have happened there. We're going to go back, take a look. We're also going to just give a little bit of a disclaimer here while we look back at this replay. Don't pay attention at the moment to what the lineup looks like on the ticker. With the late green coming out, some drivers did not actually get scored on that lap. And so therefore the running order is not quite correct. So hopefully by time we end up going back green, they can get that fixed. Being under caution, I don't think they're able to add laps and adjust the scoring. So we're going to have to wait until we go back green. But it looks like this is going to start that bump through the trioval. Wiley Coates looks like he got a bump from the 14 of Wayne Pribnow.
And watch Bob Seminara way up there against the wall, Seth. He's right there, going way up high. The wreck happens on the bottom.
Oh,
Comes
gosh.
right in front of him, and Bob's sitting there. He makes slight contact on the front of his truck, but then he's like right in the wall. He gets through it. I have no idea how much damage he's got because on the backstretch, the damage started to show, and that right side of his truck is caved in. I don't know how much it's going to affect him.
That's a pretty good shot. You're right for Bob Seminara. Looked like Brian Lavelle in the 043. He just barely got clipped by the 14 of Wayne Primnow when he came back down the track. We also had some other drivers further back here get caught up, including Paglia and Andrew Miller, and I think Jeff Crivello. Let's see what happens with them. I don't know if this was a follow-up to the wreck ahead. Yeah, looks like when Paglia got on the brakes, the truck just kind of spun out on him, came down into Crivello, and then Crivello up into the 47 of Andrew Miller, who got up on two wheels. There's
And,
Kelly causing the 00 as well.
Brian Lavelle barely makes contact at the end of that, just barely getting it.
Go on board with the 712 of Bob Seminara, see if we can get a gauge of just how bad the impact was. The tough thing there.
Whoa, they just wrecked under Pacing too, coming to the pit road as well. I mean, I'm not live, unfortunately, but they did wreck. Brian Lavelle got right up behind Bob Seminara, and I guess he got punted in the back or something.
Follow up on that. This is the onboard with the Joyous Recycling Chevrolet, the 712 of Bob Seminara, and right there, the hole closes up very quickly.
Yeah, but the damage doesn't show on his truck until he gets to the back stretch, and then it looks like the whole side gets caved in immediately right there. So on the back stretch is when it happens on the graphics and all, and I just don't know how bad that dent's going to affect them.
So right now, just based off of all the drivers that got bits and pieces of the incident, looks like two of our playoff contenders there, Seminara and Kelly Causey, got pieces of it. Not sure exactly to what extent the damage was on the 00. He was quite a ways back after he was, I believe, 34th rolling off the grid.
And what I saw was, what got my attention coming to pit road was Lavelle got right behind, started going right behind Bob Seminara, and Greg Palmer sped up just a little bit, and just like a little chain bump, and then that's all it took for the 43 to go to the left. I mean, he didn't get any damage, but still, those are the things that we got to talk about moving forward, like small, like little bumps, and like all that, just little bit like that could cost you so many spots at critical moments. I mean, luckily it's early in the race, but if it happens later in the race, that's going to be critical, Seth.
Yeah, and to your point, those things might seem minute at the time, but, consider the fact that, say you're running inside of the top 10, you get spun coming down onto pit road, you restart back in the top 20, you're back in the eye of the storm. You're in a better position to get involved in a wreck and maybe have your day come to a close. If that spin doesn't happen, the wreck may be taking place behind you. So, yeah, to your point, even small things like that, even though they may not seem like they would have any kind of bearing on your finishing result, they certainly do. So we'll keep tabs on some of those playoff drivers that are going to be back there towards the rear of the field, see if we can update on the damage that they've sustained.
Yeah, going through the field here, I got to the 5 a while ago. That back end there's a big dip between Castrol and Edge. The E has the edge, and it is dented. It definitely has an edge there now.
There was definitely some damage on the Wayne Primnow machine there as well. I love that punt. That was good. That was good. Looks like we've got 3 drivers already out of the race. Wayne Primnow just made the left-hand turn to the garage. Greg Palmer also out of the race, and Andrew Miller has also retired from the race, so they will get credited for 34th, 35th, and 36th, respectively. It was nice to see Greg Palmer back in the field here tonight. Unfortunately, an early end for him. We documented a couple of weeks ago, I think it was last week, we documented that he had taken a tumble off of a ladder, badly injured his arm. Got to race with him Saturday night. He's still in pain, but I don't know, it's almost kind of like real-life racers. As soon as they can get behind the wheel of their sim rig, they will do so, and Greg Palmer obviously no exception to that.
Yep, and another thing we got to think about now, after this little round of pit stops, Happened on what, 3 and 4 for a pit, 4 or 5 on pit stops and all, and that's gonna also be in their mind at the very end as well. This race, because I mean, I'm just going to I'm just going to put this out here and point it out, and don't yell at me if I jinx it or not. But if by some miracle of God's way that we end up going green to the end, hitting around 4 or 5, that could actually really help at the end because we get 19 to 20 laps on fuel. So at the very end of this, it's going to be a little bit better off for these guys 4 or 5 pitting. You know what I mean? At that moment.
We've also seen here in the past this season where an early caution somewhere between laps 4 to 10 sometimes really shakes things up near the end of the race, even if we end up having a couple more cautions intersprinkled between then and the checkered flag, or if we run green for the rest of the race. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens here, especially with the fact that it was a split strategy. You had, I believe, 15 cars that elected not to come to pit road. Everybody else came down pit lane, whether it was to take on tires, top off the fuel tank, or for a majority of the ones towards the rear of the field, get some damage repair done. So with that split strategy, that's what we're looking, maybe like 3 to 5 laps difference on fuel if we go into a long green flag run of when one pack might come to pit road as opposed to another pack.
And the championship group is actually split as well.
Yes.
You got some of them at the front and some of them in the back. So the ones at the back, they got a lot of work to do to get back up there.
Well, your top 4 right now are all championship drivers in this battle for the playoffs.
And you got Bob Seminara. And then you said there was another championship contender involved as well. Yeah, Kelly Causey, he's involved in this. And you got that one mulligan you like to not try to even use, and it looks like that might come into effect here.
Last thing you want to do to start off the playoffs is basically know that you're heading into next week with a must-win situation. Did Grant Wesley miss a gear or something there? Because he was super slow crossing the start-finish line. Looks like we're going to start getting the scoring put correctly now. Keith Hughes taking the lead, even though I think he's going to show on our pylon in 32nd place. But I think Grant might have, I don't know if he missed a gear shifting up to second or what, but he drops back to 3rd place. And look at the push that Rodney Summers is giving to Keith Hughes down the backstretch. No space in between those bumpers.
I'm also looking back here at the damage machines real quick. Seth, it looks like there is quite a bit of damage on Wiley, and it's really affecting him. As far as Seminara is concerned, Seminara is trying to get in line. I mean, he's on the middle/bottom trying to figure out if he can get up there, and now he does behind Chuck McClure. But it seems like there's damage on that machine.
Yeah, we talk about with the moderate damage, the different varying aspects of how damage can affect you. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do. You can't keep up with the draft. Sometimes, if you're lucky and you have a driver behind you, you're still able to stay up to speed. You can't necessarily get a run on the drivers ahead of you, but you can stay up with the lead pack, and we'll keep update there on that 712, see if he can stay with that lead pack.
There goes his high side.
The only thing that I will say for the Bob Seminara situation is, do you remember, I think it was last season, Brian Schilling, I wrote him off. I said there was no way that he was going to be able to advance into the Final Four. That truck was junked up. And I think he ended up getting pushed up into the podium in an elimination race and eventually won the championship the following week. So, as long as the engine's still running, even though it may not be up to speed, you got to stay in this thing.
Goes back to that little video game, Seth. Jimmy Johnson's anything with an engine.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Look at this. We got ourselves single filed out.
Back here, we got this big line with Desperado trying to lead this line here with Billy Elliser, Jeremy Jeffries, Chuck McClure, Brian Schilling back here. They're trying to make something work on that high side because after we saw that little bit of an issue to begin with at this early stage, you want to try to get to the front as quickly as possible and get yourself sorted out in a single file line, get all that out of the way, and then just ride for a little bit and sort yourself out, and then figure out what happens after that.
Had some fast trucks in that outside line there, including a number of the playoff contenders. Despirito in the 24, Jeffries in the 1, and the defending champ Brian Schilling in the 4 car. That's the pole sitter Billy Elliser right there on the back bumper of the 24 Despirito. And we got a high line forming up here. Oh, Bernie Mobbs went up to try and either block it or join it. It killed the momentum. Dave Melson thought about taking it 3 wide. Now that outside line's got to get that momentum back there. Josh Metallic in that outside line. Ken Roberts there as well. Terry
Glenn
Lombard.
Harris back here with Robbie Nisus. They're trying to get in that little hole in front of Dante and Chuck. It looks like Robbie will, and Chuck's going to have to go from the top to the middle, trying to switch around, see where he wants to run at. I mean, there's a lot of variables that happen when people randomly start having to cut in between. You got to slow your momentum, and you got to switch your lane when you really didn't want to begin with. You know, it messes up quite a bit of things in your mind.
I'm noticing the 24 and the 1, Despirito and Jeffries, they're trying to make something happen the shorter way around the racetrack, all by their lonesome there. It doesn't look like it's working in their favor. Nobody else jumping down to that inside line with them now. Most of the front runners on the middle line, they kind of come down a half groove to maybe offer a little bit of draft. Donnie Garrett's going to move down there. It's interesting because we showed the playoff grid at the beginning of this broadcast, and a lot of names that are familiar, former champions, some nice surprises in there. But then you also look at a lot of the names that were missing from the playoff grid. A number of former champs intermingled in that as well. I mean, Tim Nofsker, Donnie Garrett, Bernie Mobbs, Chuck McClure, Mark Pagley. These are names that we're pretty used to hearing in the same sentence as playoff contender, and they missed out on the postseason this year.
Yeah, remember, we were talking about it early on. What do you want to do? You want to win races or be consistent? And I mean, the only one who seemed to be really consistent was the one that was focused on consistency with the whole rate, the whole time was Bobby Farrell, and he was able to luck and play in there. And then you had who was it? You said Keith. Someone got in on points. Was it Keith Hughes? No, Doug Hewlett. Doug Hewlett got in on points too. He was outside the top, wasn't he?
Hewlett got in with a win. He was actually the only former winner that wasn't inside the top.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to mention, is that you got that win, you got that out of the way, and you're still in striking distance. So, you know, they got to do that. And look at this crowd up front, South. There's a hornet's nest starting. There's
a lot of movement going on there, that's for sure. Donnie Garrett was sliding around. Looked like Bernie Mobbs was a little side to side there in that middle lane.
I hate that moment where, I mean, at this point in my mind, if you're not up near the front or way in the back close to this pack, the safest point where you want to be at in the middle is at the bottom of this track, because there's a good chance that that wreck happens. It's all going to go up, but what goes up will come down, and you have a little bit more room to avoid because you got all that apron and whatnot. But honestly, what scares me on this bottom, Seth, is the checkup. The checkup is more than ever compared to the high side in that middle line.
See that move there by Grant Wesley. He was third when they entered into the tri-oval, tucked down in front of Tim Nofsker, and Nofsker didn't even push him bumper to bumper. It was kind of like that bubble push where he got the forward momentum and it propelled him ahead of Keith Hughes. How about Denny Carroll? Look at the yellow and blue Wrangler car up there on the top side. Denny Carroll in his first showing this season, first career start, I do believe, doing a great job leading that high, wide, and handsome third lane.
And they got to be really careful because that bottom is going to want to push up a little bit, and that high side, they're going to be wanting to swing down a little bit, not just to get a little bit of a run, but also to get a little bit of a, there's a little bit of a pull if you got assist on to try to help you with this circuit, Seth. I mean, that little bit of a pull is all it takes one way or the other, and that middle line's got to give on the high side and the bottom, and every once in a while that just, whoa, Bob Dixon almost got into the side of the 8 of Glenn Harris, but it's like, yeah, that's what I'm referring to. It gets really tight real quickly off these corners.
Top 5, 6, 7, 8 looks like have gotten themselves single filed out here, and now Jeremy Jeffries going to lead a outside line contingency. It's 4 on the bottom versus 4 on the top, and suddenly that 3 wide that was about 5, 6 rows deep, it's gotten double wided for about 7, 8 rows deep. It's still 3 wide, a little bit further back. Uh-oh, someone disappeared up here. Was that the race leader, Grant Wesley? I think he's disappeared. Where is he going to reappear? Is he going to fall out? This is a nervous moment. There he is. Whoa, gracious. That's where everybody takes a deep breath and hopes he's going to reappear where he disappeared.
Grant's going to peel off and get out of the way.
And I don't think Nofsker was ready for that. That really stacked up the inside line a ton.
Only question I have is Greg going to get back on safely before we get to turn 3?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Not going to lose too much, Grant?
Yeah, he's going to lose a lot of momentum there. It was a very shallow entry into turn 3, and he'll drop to the back of the pack here, try and pick up the draft of
Well,
the
I mean,
Bob Dixon machine.
we aren't worried about Grant. We already know what he does.
Oh, yeah.
We already know that he'll find a way to get up there
We
later
know
on.
the Grant Wesley come from behind stories. We've seen it before. I mean, his championship winning season, 3 races in, where was he? Outside the top 35 in the point standings.
Okay. So does that mean that we need to sit there and say, Grant, come on? Okay, we know you get these come from behind wins and all, blah 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 blah. Do something surprising. Oh, you mean like stay out front and dominate and lead every lap? Oh, well, that would be something.
Well, it's like I said with Brian Schilling last week. It seems like certain drivers have this this panache, this flair for the dramatic. Schilling seems to do that a lot in a lot of the elimination races. Matter of fact, mentioned it last week. Back-to-back seasons where he won the regular season finale, season 57 and season 58, and he's right now running in the 3rd position, right behind Chuck McClure. Look at the 00. Kelly Causey. Didn't we just mention he was in that early wreck, and now he's up in the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Sinare's still trying to hold on back there as what he can. I mean, a little bit of damage is really affecting him, along with definitely Wiley, because Wiley just got lapped with all that damage he had, unfortunately. But there's someone I want to point out to you, Seth, okay? I mean, look at the 84. Dante, he's doing what he always does. He don't care where he starts, most of the time he'll start in the back anyway. He's just been out of the way, just riding carefully. I won't be surprised if he's toward the end of this and like somewhere in the mix some way, somehow.
Not very many Toyotas in the field. I believe there are only 4 Toyotas, but to your point, Dante Ricky, he's been able to hook up with a fellow Tundra. That's Doug Kulik in the 23, just up ahead of him, playoff contender. Doug Kulik ended up, we obviously know this, winning the debut race of Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, race number 2 here this season. That racetrack, we knew it was going to be an X factor. Not many drivers turning that many laps at that particular super speedway. Most of them very well known to this version of Talladega, which they ran week after week for season after season. Bear in mind, that racetrack is going to be the track where the elimination races take place every single round. Because we are running the first race of this round at Talladega, we whittle it down from 13 to 8 next week at BSR, and then from 8 to 4 in 2 weeks' time at the same venue.
So what you're saying is predict that Tim Knopfler is going to finish in the top 5. Okay.
Yeah, probably. He's got great numbers.
Yeah, that's pretty much like his track right now. We were talking about Denny Carroll earlier. I do want to point out, look at Craig Hagley. He's right behind Joe DeSpirito. He's not like making any mistakes that I can see. He's just sitting there having a good old time on this bottom line, just riding along, Seth, not too close and not too far back, within striking distance of being in the draft. So he's out there having a good run as well.
Yeah,
14th right now, last time by.
And we talked about this too, right? That these are new names in this series, but they're not new names in the community. A lot of the drivers that race here weekly in the Tally Challenge have raced in other series with these 2 drivers, so there is a comfort level. There is a knowing of the driver tendencies in some way in terms of super speedway racing, and so no surprise to see that they've been able to find people to work with that are working with them and having very good showings here in the early going of this race.
Yeah, and the more that this happens in this series specifically, the more comfortable you're going to be with, okay, well, this guy right here, he's managing his own. I'm just going to, you know, I know I can go with him because he's going to be cautious, but he's going to be with the pack. You know, he's not going to bobble up and down or have too many connection issues or any of those things. So, gaining a lot of, you know, time with these guys of this series specifically, and probably going to have quite a few good friends too when the time comes, Seth, and he's probably going to make quite a few good ones depending on who he goes with at the end of this. But we're on lap 20, on 21, Seth. Some of these drivers didn't pit. They were able to save a little bit of fuel under the caution, so the drivers who did not pit, I expect to see them come down very soon.
Yeah, I think the telltale sign was a couple of laps ago. We saw this top 5 or 6 go from the middle line down to that yellow line. I'm actually think I'm starting to see some radios flashing. I think some hands might be out the window, and we might be having some drivers come to pit road this time. Just a little housekeeping, something that I noticed. You mentioned about Wiley Coke going a lap down. When Grant Wesley had his disappearing moment, he had it happen before the start-finish line, reappeared after the start-finish line, so he has currently scored 1 lap down. He is in a free pass position, but he's got to hope nobody else goes a lap down as Nofsker gets the wall there at pit road, collects the 82 of Keith Hughes.
Caution is not out. It's under the apron set, so caution is not waived on this.
And Keith came to pit road from
there's a
fourth
contact
position.
between Demar and Bobby Farrell back here,
That's
too.
a couple more playoff drivers right there. So that's 3 playoff contenders involved in things here on this first round of green flag pit stops.
Pit stops doing what they do best, playing a little bit of a factor.
I mean, from what I've gathered here in the seasons we've broadcasted this series, I think pit road plays more of a factor into the outcome of a race than what actually takes place above the double yellow line.
Yeah, these guys get really aggressive, and we always talk about wrecks and all, because they get really aggressive. It looks like pit road is the aggressive part right here.
And I think Doug Hulick may end up getting busted for speeding. That was really hot coming into pit road. He got a little bit of the inside pit wall there. That's another playoff driver. We'll wait and see if indeed he falls under the speeding police or not. Not sure who cycles out to the front. I think it's McClure right now is still out in front.
Well, McClure
in the
has not pit yet. They have not pitted. I think they pit on that, like, the last option that they had originally, because McClure was at the back. So
you'd be correct. Yep, so they'd have another maybe 2 laps before they come to pit road. Maybe they'll pit this lap. I don't know exactly just how much they would have been able to save under that caution period. Let's see if they're diving to pit road this time. Well, a couple are. Jeremy Jeffries in the 1. Jason Scheck, Bob Dixon coming in.
Bob Dixon's in. Jason Scheck, like you mentioned before, is in.
There's Nofsker coming back in. I think he missed pit road entry, so he had to come back in after he got into Keith Hughes.
Billy Elliser is leaving the apron to get back on the racetrack. Well, stuff does really put a mix-up into things.
It really did, right? I mean, it's got the field completely spread out now.
Well, Chuck's back on the bottom here. I think he may be coming to pit if he hasn't pit yet. He's going underneath Donnie and Joe in a 3-wide position.
Oh, 43.
Here.
You see the 43 Richard Martin there. Is he out of fuel?
Chuck's coming in.
So it's Causey, Hagley, Brian Schilling, Doug Kulick's back in. I think, the 23 got posted for speeding, so he's serving a pass-through. Mark Paglia in. There's the 43 of Richard Martin. I think you talked about the contact between Farrell and Richard Martin. I'm not certain that Demar was able to take service, had to come back around, and I think he might have run out of fuel over there in 3 and 4. That's another playoff driver having some issues here in the first race of the first round of the playoffs.
Boy, I don't think these drivers want this type of format next season, dude.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it'd be the exact same format they've run for the last couple of seasons. The only difference is we've got 2 races in the final round, which is going to put even more of an emphasis on consistency. But, I mean, if this is any kind of an indication, boy, you're going to not need consistency, you're going to need luck.
Well, we should also mention that there is another race within the race, the unfortunate, fortunate / gold star sticker thing.
Yeah, we weren't sure exactly what to call it there, but yeah, we got Brian Schilling waiting in the wings on the winner's side of the bracket challenge, waiting to see who his opponent is going to be. I believe that we've got 2 matchups going on here tonight. I'll find out who they are in just a few moments, as I think we're looking at who's eventually going to be the race leader, the 24 of Joe DeSpirito. Well, maybe not. They're catching up here to the 4 and the 17. This might be the pass for the lead going on right here.
I would imagine it would be, because Schilling scored as a leader currently right now, Seth.
And, I'm seeing that apparently the 1, Jeremy Jeffries, has been posted and is going to have to come down pit road for a pass-through. So, tough break there.
Joe DeSpirito is your leader right now. Yeah.
And indeed he is. Just ran his fastest lap of the race, actually, right there, 47.710. But Jeffries, that's another playoff driver that has had an issue now, as he's going to lose a ton of positions on track, having to serve that pass-through. So as I'm looking right now, if we're compiling a list of the playoff drivers right at this moment that have hit hardship in the first half of this race, you've got Doug Hewlick, you've got Grant Wesley, Richard Martin, and then
Bobby
also
Farrell?
Bobby Farrell, I just noticed. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
23
remember, he was the
seconds
one
back.
who got contact with DeMar on pit road.
Correct, good point. So, yep, you got him, and then you've also now got Jeremy Jeffries added to that list. So we've got almost 50% of our playoff drivers already that are going to have to try and hope for a caution to mount a comeback here in the second half of this race.
Yep. And like I said, the one good thing that some of these drivers have going for them, if they are kind of in a bad situation in the playoff round here, is they got that March Madness bracket and the bracket thing.
Looks like that 712, Bob Seminara. Looks like he's okay.
Yeah, he's
fourth
trying
in this
to
line
stay
right now.
If he has someone pushing behind him and someone directly in front of him to stay within the draft, he's fine, from what I can tell. But it's that point where you got to have someone behind you, otherwise you're done pretty much.
I believe we've got 7 playoff drivers in this lead pack right now. Despirito, Seminara, Schilling, Hughes, Metallic, Sullins, and Causey. I believe those are the 7 drivers right now that are currently in the pack all the way back to the 18th position. Well, the other drivers, they're in the camp of hoping that a yellow flag's going to come out so they can get back into this hunt. Grant Wesley is still in the free pass position, 1 lap down. Wiley Coate also 1 lap down in a free pass position. Richard Martin, though, because he ended up having the issue on pit road and we believe ran out of fuel halfway around the racetrack coming back in, he has now fallen 2 laps down. So he's going to need a couple of cautions to get back into this.
Yeah, I was going to point that out as well, is that you had DeMar back there along with Grant a lap down, and DeMar's going to need 2 cautions at least to try to get him back up into the mix. But going back to what you were saying, you got Jeffries, Farrell, Knopfsker, Hewlick, these guys way back here, and they're like 30 seconds plus. You got Padley at 10 seconds back. You got these drivers 7 or more back here. You got Bernie, Ken Roberts, Jason Scheck. These guys, they really got to have a caution badly if they want to have a shot at this. And I don't know if it's going to go green to the end, but if we saw anything about, cautions breed cautions things, I'm looking at the idea of pit road accidents may breed pit road accidents, because we got still 36 laps to go.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, I was just kind of working the math in my head here. Most of those pit stops took place between laps 21 to 23. If they make the next pit stop at the furthest we know they can go, about 21 to 22 laps, that puts them... No. 20 to 21 laps, I should say. Yeah, 19 to 20. That puts them right on the mark, maybe a half lap to a full lap short of making it the rest of the way. You mentioned it. The early cautions, sometimes they have a very interesting factor into the outcome of the race, depending on how things play out.
And now Doug Hewlick has gone a lap down, and now he's got to figure out what he's got to do along with Tim Knopfsker. So that's going to add more of a issue with Grant trying to make sure he's in front of them in case the caution does come out.
Yeah, Wiley Coates about to go another lap down here. Looks like Robbie Nisus is about to go a lap down, so it's going to make that mountain a little bit tougher to climb for Grant Wesley and Richard Martin. At some point, it might not even be a caution in terms of a lucky dog that saves you. You may have to hope that a yellow flag comes out for a big wreck. It takes a lot of drivers out, so that way you can maybe vulture your way and pick up a few spots before the end of the race if there is no possibility of you getting a lucky dog.
You basically mean you gotta hope that there's a wreck. If you are hoping for a wreck, you gotta hope that, and I don't mean to be rude about it, that it knocks some of your other contenders out.
Yeah, exactly.
More like, and no offense, I'm just randomly picking out names here, just random. Like, you would rather have Keith Hughes get hit and knocked out rather than have JT Mayhew. So you gotta pick and choose. Like, oh, I hope this guy gets. I hope this guy, because that right there is gonna be your only saving the grace if you can't get that caution.
Here's the interesting thing too. We mentioned about half the drivers are currently in contention still for this win. Another half of the playoff drivers are right now just hoping that a caution can save their bacon. There's going to be 8 drivers that are going to advance into the next round at the conclusion of next week's race. We know that there's a possibility that a driver could win their way in tonight, leaving 7 spots available. The cut line is going to be 8th in the playoff standings. And we talk about in super speedway racing, especially when we see these drivers stacked up 3-wide all the way back through the field, positions and points are constantly changing. How difficult is it going to be for a driver next week if they are either just above or just below that cut line to keep doing the math in their head of, I need to be this many positions ahead of this driver, or I need to be this many positions behind this driver? I mean, it's a
Something
constant moving chess game.
something I've taken note of, and this is just me personally, Seth, so I'm sure all these other drivers are not like me when it comes to this stuff, but when you get in that moment of, okay, you're 9th in points and you gotta be in the top 8, right? Okay, know how far back you are, know a couple of drivers in front of you, a couple of drivers behind you that can catch you, and just go out there and run your race. Don't worry about the points too much if you can help it, because the more you worry about points, the more likely you are about making a mistake.
Yep. I can definitely agree with that. I mean, you overthink it too much,
Yeah.
and then you forget about something else that's just as equally important.
I'd rather miss out on the playoffs and be able to be happy rather than make a mistake wreck and then get penalized at the end of it.
So, with the fact that we've got a number of our playoff drivers right now kind of behind the proverbial 8 ball, just how tame do you think it's going to be up in this lead packet, at least between now and the next round, potentially of green flag pit stops? Because they know the situation. They know all of those drivers would like a caution to get back into it. The last thing they want to do is gift them that yellow and double the competition.
I would honestly say just basically what we're seeing right now. I mean, you got Rodney making that move up behind Josh Metallic right now up here. You got like 3 drivers on the bottom, including Kelly Causey. I think the best option right now is just ride, get the next round of pit stops out of the way, then let all fun and games begin. Because honestly, if you start moving around too much, we've seen what happens at that point. It's just no fun, no game, But also, we know, and I don't mean to put them out there, we know how aggressive and how good Grant can be on these plate tracks. We've seen his wins. We've seen him do weird, odd, and strategies to randomly come back out of anything. So honestly, in their mind, let's run single file. We really want to try to make sure we don't have more competition at that point. You know what I mean? Put him in that hole so he's more likely to miss or something like that, and give me the opportunity to make it, etc. But at the same time, this right here it's hurting Grant and the other players that we were talking about that they're already lapped down. It's just hurting them even more because the field being single file, they're going to catch up to the other drivers a little bit quicker, and then it's going to be more of a kind of a desperation move, I guess. But you got people like Grant that they'll have a cool head about it. It'd be unfortunate. They'll say it's unfortunate. They're upset in the mind when it comes to racing their moment, but they're not going to let it get to them. They're just going to be calm, cool, and collect. They'll sit there and say, well, there's always next season. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go out there and enjoy myself and have fun like we need to have. But something I want to bring up to you that was on my mind. If we have a caution, okay? I'm just saying, hypothetically, if we have a caution.
Right.
I remember racing on this, and they would say, track position is more important.
Yeah.
Track position is more important. It's always more important. Would you risk staying out, getting a waiver round, just to get back on the lead lap, and hope for another caution, versus pitting and staying that lap down?
Honestly, I think at this point in time, if we're this far into a run, I would say probably not, because you'd then be banking on a caution coming out within 7 to 8 laps. If you don't get that caution within 7 to 8 laps, you're back down pit road and you're falling another lap down. If we were early in a run, say we had just finished up green flag pit stops, then absolutely I'd be staying out if all the lead lap cars were coming to pit road. But At this point in time, I think you just have to kind of wave the white flag of surrender and say, all right, well, I realize the situation. I just got to try and race for a lucky dog because I'm going to be such a huge detriment as far as fuel. We do have another driver that's now retired out of the race, Wiley Coate. We mentioned about Richard Martin and Grant Wesley being a lap down. There's some more playoff contenders just up ahead of race leader Joe DeSpirito, including Jeremy Jeffries and Bobby Farrell, also the 28 of Mark Paglia. So we're about to have four playoff contenders that will be at least -1 here as we enter into the second half of this race.
I don't think it's going to be long before we see another round of pit stops either, Seth.
Yeah, we're looking,
they pit,
what
lap 24?
Yeah, it's got to be less than 5 laps, I would think, right?
If they pit around lap 24, lap 25-ish, I think that's when they last pit or something like that. Because I'm watching Rodney. It says lap 40 right now on his ticker. So
I think we might have some pitters right now. I just noticed the 24 and the 84 went rather wide, as if they might have been posting their coming to pit road.
Joe just posted he's coming in. So yep, there's a few of them coming in.
We'll keep an eye here on the 24 and the 77. They'll probably be coming to pit road together. Looks like the 84 is going to stay out an extra lap. Already seen pit road entry be an issue for some drivers.
I'm back here with Rodney, Crivello, really deep down there, and they make it.
They all make it. About a pack of 10 right there, making it onto pit lane safely. Rodney Sullins was a part of that.
A little bit close. That was close with Seminara and Nomsker there on pit road. A little bit close there.
Lap car of Grant Wesley on pit road.
Hey, Seth, look at Seminara. He's like really far to the left there. I wonder if he got tagged a little bit because his like left front was way like next to the wall on pit road.
Coming out of pit lane now. See if Dante Rookie and company, how long they'll go before they eventually hit pit lane. Kelly Causey there, Brian LaBelle. Well, here comes Rookie to pit road now.
And right now, that's going to leave Schilling stayed out, Seth.
I believe Kelly Causey also stayed out. I think he's who's going to get the race lead. So that's going to be a lap-led bonus point for the 00. That could be important.
And remember, Kelly got involved in that incident a little bit, so he's got a little bit of damage on him, but this is a really great rebound for the 00.
Yeah, Causey started this race from 34th. I was going to point out Joe DeSpirito, who's led the most laps so far, 14, before he gave up the lead to come to pit road. He started this race back in the 30th position, so a number of drivers have done a good job despite the randomizer not giving them very good queue positions of making up track time and working their way through the field. Looks like JT Mayhew, Doug Hewlett going to come to pit road this time. That's Richard Martin, Jeremy Jeffries, Mark Paglia up ahead. We're on the tail end of the lead lap in that group of 3 or 4 that the leaders were starting to catch. Elser, Harris, Robbie Nisus completing their service as well.
Jeremy's on pit road getting service. Seth, this is just gonna, I don't know if this benefits or hurts Grant even more at this point.
And I don't know if you're a driver what you plan for, right? I mean, we kind of thought that maybe with how much was on the line for playoff drivers coming into this race that we might see a couple of cautions. We've only seen one in the early stages of this race. Right now, do you shift gears? Do you now start to plan for a potentially green flag race to the end? Or I don't know what you strategize for right now.
I can't strategize at this point if I'm because you always expect there to be a little bit of aggressiveness toward the end of these. So if they're going to be aggressive, you got to look at that one lap marker, which is what, so 62?
Yeah, it'd be 62 now with us having the lap cars, the lap trucks.
So what you're looking at is gaining as many spots as you can by 61, 62. But, you know, if you're a lap down, it's pretty much game over at that point. So, I mean, right now you're just riding. There's nothing you can do, just ride and hope that we get a caution.
I do believe that based off the numbers, when most of the pack came to pit road, we're looking 2 to 3 laps short on fuel as they run right now. So things could get very interesting in the final 10 laps of this race.
We got Schilling and McClure and Kelly Colley. Actually, I should say McClure, Schilling, and Kelly Colley, top 3 at this point coming out of pit road.
But here comes Joe. And he's got momentum. He's got a lot of cars up there on the top with him. And 24, back to the point.
Yeah, hey, you gotta look at that. You got Cividera, Donnie Garrett, Keith Hughes, Godfrey.
When's the last time that we said that the Florida boys, the Florida gang, were lined up 1, 2, 3 in a Tally Challenge race? I feel like it's been ages.
Chuck trying to always get really close to Dante there.
Trying to force
Chuck
his
trying
way
to get
in.
in his right there
it
is.
The nose of the 32, or that's the 41. I'm sorry. Caution is out.
Keith gets tagged. Keith Hadley got tagged a little bit there. Denny Carroll with a huge barrel roll there.
Oh, and a little shot there afterwards from Chuck McClure.
Caution is out, and this changes everything. Who do we got for Lucky Dog, Seth?
Right now, it's saying Bobby Farrell, Mark Paglia, first 2 cars, 1 lap down.
Jeremy Jeffries, I'm not sure who else would benefit here.
Yeah, he's on the tail end of the lead lap right now is Jeremy Jeffries. So he's saying, come on, T-Mark, get me back to the line ahead of this 24.
Well, honestly, Chuck McClure, that's got to really be a big hit here because he was right there. I think it was crossed the line at 8th at that point of the rack at that moment. And this right here, there's another mulligan that we have to think about and talk about now for next week.
Yeah, Chuck McClure missing out on the playoffs. Was just out here looking for checkered flags. He's winless so far this season. Is the driver of the 17. Let's see if we can go back and take a look at what happened. Any drivers that come to pit road now might just top off the fuel tank.
It looked like when Dante and Chuck were side by side, it looked like the drafting line looked like they both wanted the same piece of real estate at that point, because we always talk about that middle line, about how everyone wants that. Dante right there, Chuck right there. Chuck got a little sniff of it, and Dante is still trying to hang on to it, and a little bit higher up, and Chuck's right there. It's like, and then all of a sudden there's a little bit of a gap. I think Chuck kind of was hoping that Denny would cut him a break there at that moment.
Yeah, it looks like 17 tried to force his way up into line. And Denny Carroll, to your point, was there to his right rear quarter panel. And it looks like a little bit of frustration there out of Chuck McClure. But at the same time, I don't see how Denny Carroll is under any obligation to let the 17 truck in. That outside line had already been a lap up to speed. They were all lined up there. I know McClure doesn't want to lose spots, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know. Look at another angle here. It just kind of looks to me like the 17 tried to force his way up, and he was definitely not clear.
Well, if you go back to where Chuck and Dante had met side by side, you'll see what I mean. It's like they both try to get that same piece of real estate at that point, because Dante was a little bit higher up and just a little bit of a whip. And at that point, when Dante came back down, I thought there was going to be right between Chuck and Dante at that point, but there was a little bit of a gap that was there. And I think Chuck was hoping that Denny would cut him a break, as he was up there in contention versus Denny Carroll making his first start. And and you can't ever predict how these things are going to play out. So
here's the onboard with the 41 of Denny Carroll. You can see right there. There's this almost contact you were talking about between McClure and Dante Ricky, and then right there, the 17 just keeps coming up, and boy, Denny Carroll, wild barrel roll there. Tough Break was having a good run, as was the 32 of Craig Hagley. Both of them involved in this one. Denny Carroll is out of the race, as is... Actually, no, they're actually now showing that Denny Carroll is still in the race. I thought it showed that he had retired out of the event. Chuck McClure is also out of the event, and the 32 will obviously have to get some damage repaired after he took a pretty good shot to the back end of his Chevrolet.
Well, Seth, remember what I said earlier? Would you take a wave around or not?
I was just noticing this.
Grant's up there. I think Grant wants that wave around.
Farrell, Paglia, Nofsker, Hewlett, Crivello, Wesley, Scheck, Dixon, Nisus, and Martin appear to maybe be ones taking the wave around. Nope, actually, they hadn't yet taken service. Hadn't yet taken service, had those lap down cars. Pit road now open, so actually narrow it down to Knopfsker, Crivello, Wesley, and Dixon that appear that they're going to take the wave around. The rest of the lap down machines hitting pit road. So this should cycle around the lead to Joe DeSpirito once we get back green flag racing, and it will be with less than 20 laps to go. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break and a word from our sponsor, Ultimate Garage Floors, and we'll be right back here to the action from Talladega Superspeedway, the first playoff race of season 58 of the RTG Talladega Challenge. Following presentation of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series on the Flatout Racing Network is brought to you by Ultimate Garage Floors. Ultimate Garage Floors is very active in the garage remodeling community, staying current with the latest technologies and custom configurations so that we can bring you the highest quality installations. As a Northern Virginia Exposy flooring installer, we focus on garages and commercial flooring to perfect our craft and bring you high results. In a space that gets as much wear and tear as your garage, you want to be able to trust that the cabinets and flooring we install are ready to withstand against high traffic and regular use. That is why we include a lifetime warranty with our services so that you know we stand behind the quality of our work. To get started with a free consultation, call us at 540-931-9006 or visit us on the web at ultimategaragefloorsva.net. That's ultimategaragefloorsva.net. Getting ready to go back racing. You saw there with our side-by-side, a couple of drivers taking the wave around. Bobby Farrell, Mark Paglia getting the lucky dog. Joe DeSpirito is going to choose the outside line here as the race leader. He'll hook up with Bob Seminara here on this upcoming restart. Brian Schilling will subsequently start on the inside line with Donnie Garrett as his wingman. Dante Ricky, Kelly Causey, Rodney Summons, Terry Bombard, JT Mayhew, and Keith Hughes. That's going to be the top 10. McClure and Danny Carroll were officially the two drivers out of the race after this most recent yellow. When we go back green here, Jess, there's only going to be 3 drivers off the lead lap. Doug Kulik, Robbie Nisus, -1. Richard Martin, -2. With how many laps there are left, there's still a chance they could maybe be back on the lead lap at the end of this thing.
Gotta be very careful on this restart, though. We see a lot of checkups at the very beginning of these restarts, blowing gears and whatnot. So let's see if everyone gets through it just fine as we go back to green here. We got about, what is it, Seth? 16 laps, 17 laps left here
Yeah,
on this
17
run?
laps, so fuel should not be a concern here in the closing stages. They should be within the window to make it to the checkers, and we've seen okie dokies in the front row. I don't think we've ever seen an okie dokie from the second row. Bob Seminara kind of dragged the brake a little bit there to let the 77 of Donnie Garrett up and get the 2477 and 712 all nose to tail.
We're already 3 wide back here, Seth.
Well, I mean, you know, we're less than 20 to go. Drivers at the back of the pack, middle of the pack, they got to find some way to move forward, and that's the 2-time winner, Keith Hughes, leading that third lane.
You know, ever since Keith Hughes came in the series this season, he's really been putting on a really good show. You notice that?
Putting on a good show and been gaining the confidence of drivers. I remember Donnie Garrett said that he and the 82 worked really well together in the first couple of starts that Keith made, so he's been earning the trust of the drivers out there. Obviously has been very successful, the only multi-time winner on the season, and he's got some friends up there on that outside line. John Godfrey in the 711, Ken Roberts in the 55. Inside line trying to form. Dante Ricky was the leader of that group, but he jumps up to the middle line. Now be JT Mayhew in that Chips Ahoy number 338.
Cookie Monster on the back, by the way.
I noticed that. Yeah, Bernie
Monster.
Mob's got a good view there of Cookie Monster, doesn't he?
We gotta add that Cookie Monster. And by the way, Seth, I don't want to jinx it or anything based on the conversation we had before the race, but down here on this bottom behind Brian Lavelle is this 39 machine.
Yeah, Josh Metallic hanging out there. We haven't really mentioned his name much, and sometimes at a super speedway, that's a good thing because it either means that you've been staying out of trouble and not getting involved in wrecks. Maybe you want your name mentioned by being out in front, but at the same time, too, you know, you can end up, as we've documented, you can work your way from the back of the middle of the pack up to the front if you've got the right momentum, the right line, and the right drafting partner. So he is certainly not out of this thing yet.
Whoa, a little bit of a shifty back here where Doki and Demar is. Kind of had some of these guys kind of backed off the throttle. I was curious about what I just saw on this backstretch for a moment before we got to turn 3. I watched Bobby Farrell get a good run on Tim Oscar.
Oh,
he got really close and he backed off, and I don't know what that was about. I mean, there was no one really right there on his back bumper at that point, so I'm trying to figure out. I mean, and I'm guessing Bobby's just really trying to be careful and patient at this point, Seth.
Could be. I mean, we just ended up almost having our third caution of the day there. Jeremy Jeffries, who ended up getting that caution while he was the last truck on the tail end of the lead lap. He's now worked his way up into the top 15, but he pulled up behind Dave Melson, and there was some kind of a stack up there, and he was shoving the back bumper of the Wonder Bread Chevrolet Camaro. I thought they were going to wreck, but they kept the fenders on it and kept going. But
I'm watching
that
this.
That was nearly a disaster in the middle of the pack.
Well, it looks like I thought there was going to be a 3-wide battle here. Well, there we go again. Dave Melson going to take a little peek to the high side, Seth, with Jeremy Jeffries.
And right behind them is going to be the 043 of Brian Lavelle. Keith Hughes looks like he might be venturing up there as well. These drivers realizing they can't just ride. They've got to make something happen. Otherwise, they're going to still finish outside of the top 5. Speaking of top 5, another quiet driver here this evening, Rodney Sullins in the 38. He started this race around mid-pack, I believe. Oh, no, he started up towards the front. He started 5th place. But we haven't really talked that much about him.
Terry Bombard's up here, too.
And remember, Rodney Sullins was in the Final Four for the championship, made his first playoff appearance and advanced in the Final Four back in, I believe it was season 56. So keep an eye out for this 38 truck trying to get his playoff started out right, as he's going to jump to the bottom there to try and take 4th from Bob Seminara.
Terry Bombard, Byron Kelly Collier. We haven't talked about that 10 truck too much either. So.
Right. Yeah.
And Mark Paglia, he's back up here on this bottom line, Seth.
Paglia was one of the 2 drivers that got the lucky dog under the most recent caution. So a nice comeback for him. Tim Nosker in the 088 took the wave around. He's about to crack back up into the top 10, and right behind him, you mentioned Bobby Farrell. Farrell was another of the lucky dog drivers under the most recent cautions. So some good job by some drivers we mentioned they just needed a caution to get back into contention, and here they are.
Grant Wesley about several trucks behind Bobby Farrell. He's got DMAR behind it looks like Bobby Farrell, DMAR. Keith Hagley with a little bit of damage on the back of his machine from the last caution, and then you got Grant Wesley right there as well.
I do have to amend my statement from previous just real quick. I said that everybody, for the most part, that they were not going to have to worry about fuel. That's not the case for Tim Nofsker or Grant Wesley, because remember, they took the wave around, so they might be a little bit short of making it the rest of the way. So they're back in the camp of hoping for another yellow flag before they'd eventually have to make that pit stop.
I was going to say, like, so remember I mentioned about having the wave around, if we're going to, would you risk it or not? That's what I was actually about to bring up to you.
Yeah, and that was not too long after we had the green flag pit stop, so it was a good gamble on their part.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out really nice and really well, but now it's crunch time. Less than 10, we're right here at 10 to go. When do we see it? When do we see, okay, it's time to go? Do we see it at 63? Or do we see it
right now? Look at that inside line. I think these drivers are in go mode right now. They realize they've got to make something happen against that top four that have remained single file since the restart.
Schilling with a commanding lead at this point on that high side. I mean, Schilling is pretty confident. He can block whatever lane he wants at this point, but the question is, what's Donnie Garrett gonna do? Because Donnie unfortunately missed out based on a lot of unfortunate mishaps this season on the 77 machine. But Donnie wants to at least get a win.
And I'm not certain if the 24 of Despirito, if he let Brian Schilling in, or if all the finagling that Despirito, Garrett, and Seminara were doing to try and get lined up, if Brian Schilling was able to take advantage of that and slide up to the point. So at some time, does the 24 maybe make a move on the 4, and does Garrett and Seminara go with him? So a little cat and mouse game's going on right now, because while Joe Despirito, for the moment, is willing to ride behind Brian Schilling, not only is there a checkered flag on the line, that's a playoff opponent out his windshield as well.
I just made a small little joke at Dante's expense over on Whisper with him. You know how he's got Snickers on his machine? I said, because Dante usually is up near the front near the end of these. I said, Dante, you must be hungry, because you're not you when you're hungry.
I'm looking at this 00 of Kelly Causey, and that inside line was making strides a couple of laps ago. It has since tapered off, and Kelly's about to fall outside of the top 5.
First movers back here, Hewlick and Dante on that high side. They're thinking about trying to figure, well, Dante's going to abandon Hewlick now at this point. I thought that there was going to be a little bit of something going on back here. I guess they're just going to have to wait a couple more laps before they want to think about doing a 3-wide mission here.
Yeah, right now Doug Hewlick is hoping that a caution comes out sooner rather than later. He's the first truck 1 lap down, along with Robbie Nisus. He needs that lucky dog to be able to maybe pick some spots late.
He's got like, what, 1 or 2 laps to hope for at this point?
Just about, yeah, I would say. I'd say maybe like 2.5 laps here. If he doesn't get a caution, then he's more than likely going to either finish where he is, or maybe if some drivers under that point of no return end up retiring out of the race. If we have a big wreck during the point of no return, he might be able to pick up some spots. All of a sudden, Dave Melson has decided to jump down here to the inside line with Jeremy Jeffries. I was going to mention Kelly Causey. Last season, or not last season, 2 seasons ago, he pointed his way into the playoffs but got eliminated in the first round. At this point in time, looking a lot better for his chances to maybe advance into the round of 8, but he's since been kicked back to around the 7th or 8th position. It's Dave Melson on this inside line. And again, we mentioned it, 13 drivers this season battling for the championship, but when the green flag flew, there were another 23 drivers that were just out there looking for checkered flags. They don't have to worry about a championship. They don't have to worry about playoff points. Dave Melson falls under that category.
They're worried about the bracket series too, you know that,
That's right, that's true.
Which you haven't touched on about who's with who, because I don't even know who's with who right now. I just know you said the unfortunate side is trying to be fortunate at this point in time.
Yeah, I'll get that bracket series
up
here
coming
in a
down.
Yeah, he took the wave around. He needed the caution, and he was short of making it on fuel. So Tim Nofsker.
So we see it's affecting Nofsker now.
Yep.
We know Novskar's got to go.
I'd be
So
worried
who's
about that
going
88
next?
of Grant Wesley. If Novsker was that close to having to come to pit road, I would think that Grant Wesley couldn't be that far behind.
Too, so who else we got? We got Grant and Novsker on pit road right now. Who else are we looking at?
I think Crivello. I think Crivello was the other driver that took a wave around. The others were lucky dogs or came to pit road on the second lap of caution. So I think it was just those three that elected to stay out under that caution period.
All right, Seth. It's already 62 on 63. Next flag pretty much ends it right now. So whether it's checkered or caution, when do you want to make the actual move on your leader, Mr. Brian Schilling, Seth?
That's the big question, isn't it? Because we've seen where the caution will come out just after they cross the start-finish line, so they've got a little over 2.5 miles to settle it out before they come back to the caution. We've also seen wrecks take place in the tri-oval, only giving you a few hundred feet to try and make a move for the win. So it all comes down to timing, the timing of the move, the timing of a potential caution flag flying. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but you don't want to make that move too early.
No, but if you don't make that move early enough, you can't generate enough of a run to get there, too, depending on where you're at in the field.
Got the slower
They're coming
car
the lap
there,
of Crivello here.
Yep, he ended up having to pit just moments ago. No inside line up here as far as the top five are concerned. Melson's still leading that bottom lane, but he's back battling for 6th or 7th place right now with Keith Hughes. Donnie shows the nose a little bit there, stays in line.
I noticed that Donnie was a little bit higher up or a little bit lower than the Joe DeSpirito machine. So it looks like Donnie is trying to sniff around and get an idea where he wants to go. But Seth, this is I have no idea what to think here, whether they're about to get really crazy or whether they're just going to calm themselves down and sit there and say, okay, well, we'll go side by side and battle at the end like this, or who cares? Let's go 3 or 4 or 5 wide if we possibly can. I know it's not possible for 5, but still.
No 3 wide yet, though. That's surprising.
Whoa,
You got double wide for about 6 rows. Ooh, check out Brian
I
Laval.
do want to point out Seminara. Great comeback for him. Great comeback for Kelly Causey in the 00 here. I mean, they really persevered, and that's what this is all about at the very moment when it comes to points. You get involved in wrecks, you're damaged, you're a little bit off pace, stay and try to persevere, and you might reap the rewards like Seminara and Kelly Causey are.
Also got to give an attaboy to Jeremy Jeffries. He was about to go a lap down before the caution came out and saved him, and now he's up here battling for a spot inside of the top 5. Can they make it out of turn 4 to the start-finish line? If they do, we race back to the checkers no matter what. We'll give the disclaimer, if trouble breaks out, we'll go back and look at it, but we're going to stay up here at the front because it's 2.66 miles to decide the playoff opener.
Who's going to punch a ticket to the next round, Seth?
Right now, you've got Brian Schilling, Joe DeSpirito, Jeremy Jeffries, Bob Seminara, Kelly Causey, Rodney Sullins. They could all do that with a victory. Not clear is the 24
Whoa, there we go.
DeSpirito.
Really, really close.
Where's he going to go? He
there
gets
they go.
turned. DeSpirito goes airborne. The 24 is going to lose a lot of points because of that. Schilling's got them stacked up double wide behind him. Who gets the run?
Going up on Novsker.
Oh,
there they go.
no,
Dave Nelson.
What a save. No, back up into
Whoa, they're
Brian
flipping
Lavelle.
back here.
Here comes Donnie Garrett. He's to the inside of Brian Schilling through the tri-oval. They're still wrecking through the infield grass. To the line. Door bang. Donnie Garrett by a splitter is going to win here tonight.
And a big pile up here in the tri-oval off of 4, Seth.
About 4 trucks, I think, that made it to the line. Everybody
look
else
at Bobby Farrell. Farrell's going in and out of drivers trying to get somewhere.
Slicing and dicing to the start-finish line.
He went from, I just looked at where Bobby was.
18th to 12th.
Yep. How about that? And then, unfortunately, Joe DeSpirito went from where he was, rallying for the lead, all the way down to 10th. It was a lot worse because that happened on the backstretch for him, but that it should have happened in 3 and 4 into the tri-oval. Luckily saved DeSpirito a little bit right there as he was able to gain a little bit more back.
Yeah, he was facing backwards, airborne, the backstretch. He's lucky he got a top 10.
So much to happen. We got to go back and look at that wreck, Seth.
Well, you go back to the second race of the season, I believe it was. No, I'm sorry, the third race of the season. Donnie Garrett crossed the start-finish line, thought that he had won the race. A post-race penalty gave the win to then second place Keith Hughes. Sweet redemption here tonight for driver number 77. Granted, he didn't make it into the playoffs, but he's going to have a checkered flag here in season 58. And this may be the longest burnout of the season here if he's got anything to say about it. We are going to go back. We are going to look at the replays of everything that happened. I saw about 2 or 3 trucks that were airborne through the infield grass there off of 4.
It looked to me on the backstretch, and I'm not trying to make it look any negative in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, Shelley Despirito and Donnie off at 2. Looked like at that moment, Joe decided, well, I might try to make a move on the high side. And as he started going up, you know, when the truck goes up a little bit in front of you, it creates a little bit of, if you know, Donnie's a little bit lower at this point because he hasn't made a move up to follow Joe. And that little bit of a gap between Despirito, Shilling and Donnie gives a little bit more of a suck up to the 77. And when Joe made that move up, then I think Joe said, well, maybe I'll come back down. Just a bumper grab right there off of the 77.
Yep, I think you've nailed it right on the head because that's what it actually looked like in live time to me, too. It looked like maybe just a little bit too late of a move there by Joe Despirito. Granted, he was reacting to the block by Brian Schilling, but look at this. Gonna hit the inside wall with the left front, keeps going, and as we mentioned, he was second. He dropped back to, that would have been about 22nd, and he ends up crossing the line in the 12th position. Why? Well, let's show you what happened further up here off of turn 4, and I don't even know where this starts. I think it was with Kelly Causey. I think it was actually the save almost by Dave Melson. Yeah, that led to this. And I think it was a case of bumper grabbing this one, too. I think Jeremy Jeffries was just shoving the heck out of Dave Melson, which you had to do if you were going to get that inside line moving. Might have bumped him just a little off center. Gets the 038 squirrely right there. He comes back up the track.
Look at Kelly Causey. He almost comes all the way back. Like, I want to go backwards. No, sideways.
There's Dante Ricky.
Barely, Dante got clipped when he was trying to avoid that. He got clipped very, very, unfortunately, in the very corner of his truck. I mean, that was bad for Dante.
Begins barrel rolling. That car actually, that truck capsized, didn't come back on all 4 wheels. And then you've got the drivers that if they're facing forward, they mash the gas. If they're facing backwards, they slam it into reverse. Everyone just scrambling to get back to the checkered flag in whatever position they possibly can.
Tell you, next week, Seth, Novsker,
Wesley.
Yeah, I'm going through these guys are, and Doug Hewlick.
Richard Martin.
Yeah. Isn't Chuck, did you say Chuck was in it too?
No, Chuck is not in it, nope.
Okay.
Neither is Novsker.
Oh my gosh, Seth, I mean, there's going to be a lot of hectic decision making next week during the race at BSR.
You mentioned BSR, Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. That is where we're going to have ourselves a very interesting elimination race.
I'm gonna bank out on this and basically kind of, if I had to pick someone that I was gonna lean toward to actually do something, it'd probably be Novsker. I hate to say it this early, but that's how I feel.
Well, Tim Novsker is a good pick. I would look at the 88 of Grant Wesley though too. He mentioned last week he really likes that racetrack, so continue to look at what happens here.
I do want to point out something. I do want to point out something, Seth, that we should make a note of here. Craig Hagley, he got involved in that wreck, had damage and all. He comes away with the 11th place finish because of the wreck. I mean, persevered like with Seminara and Kelly Causey and and others. I mean, Bobby Farrell, he come back to finish 12th. I mean, every little point counts at this time of the playoffs. I mean.
And what do we say if it's still running?
They're going to be in a really good shape moving forward.
Yeah, and what do we say? If it's still running, you stay in it because you never know what might happen, just like what happened here in the closing stages on the final lap.
And we got some, non-playoff drivers. You got Donnie, obviously, with the win, but we also got you got Billy Elliser, Terry Bombard up here.
Where did Jason Scheck come from?
Yeah, I was going to mention him. I was going to say that it's good to see that the 44 machine, I mean, after what Jason Scheck has been through, and what we've seen him, have unfortunate, issues, not just, in this series but other series based on personal circumstances and whatnot. I mean, look at him finishing in the top 5 after that wreck. Exciting finish on that. And I mean, he's got to be feeling really good after this too.
Yeah, and you mentioned about Billy Ellis. I remember he was based off the random qualifying. He was slated to be the pole sitter, decided to forfeit it, dropped to the back, and made his way back up here for a top 10 finish. So well done by him. There's a lot of playoff contenders up here, though, inside of this top 10. Schilling with second, Jeffries in third, Seminara in fourth, Metallic sixth, Keith Hughes in ninth, and Joe DeSpirito there in 10th. And then just outside there, you got Farrell in 12th and Kelly Causey in 13th. Things are going to be pretty congested just above that 8th position in the point standings, but
Now,
then you've got all those drivers that are going to be scrambling.
Do they get extra points for, I mean, I know Donnie won, but I'm just saying if a playoff driver won the race, I know they would advance and get normal points, but would they get extra points too based on being a playoff driver?
I believe, if I remember correctly, I believe you get 3 bonus points for each win for a round that carries over to the next round. I believe that's how it is. I might be wrong, but I think that's how it is.
Well, unfortunately, Donnie a little bit late coming in with the, moment of, playoffs are now, unfortunately, not, next week or so, but Donnie's still got to win, and that's what really counts to him right now, I would imagine. I mean, he's got to be ecstatic right now for that.
There's a look at it, freeze frame, that photo finish. Donnie Garrett, 9/1000ths of a second over Brian Schilling. And Jeremy Jeffries, a close third there, 75/1000ths of a second to complete the podium. And we're going to be talking with those podium finishers in just a moment here. But you mentioned it, just the drivers that we're going to be talking a lot about next week, because they're not necessarily in must-win situations. We have to wait until the official standings are out and everything is sorted to know what the mathematical eligibility is of pointing or winning into the next round. But you mentioned Grant Wesley, Doug Hewlick, Richard Martin. These are drivers that they're going to be feeling the pressure next week.
I just hope there's no post-race penalties that'll, have any issues this time. Hopefully it's official here at this point.
Yep, because we've seen that here during the regular season. Drivers end up getting the post-race penalties, and for some of them, it affected whether they advanced into the playoffs or not. It affected where they were positioned if they advanced in the playoffs as far as their seeding, which we mentioned last week. If you finished up inside, I think it was the top 10 in points, based off of where you finished in regular season standings, you ended up getting a points payout, bonus points for this first round. So, yeah, I echo what you're saying there. Hopefully, we don't have any post-race penalties.
Who was the point leader coming in? Metallic, right?
Yes. Yep, it was Metallic, and I think he had, was it 6 points? Yep, 6 points over Brian Schilling.
I'm refreshing the thing right now to see if the standings are up. Yep, they just did that. Schilling and Metallic are currently tied for the top. Jeremy Jeffries and Keith Hughes, 14 back apiece. And then it's Bobby Farrell in 5th. Seminara's 6th, currently 25 back. DeSpirito, 32 back. Grant Wesley, with that unfortunate issue, 33 back in 8th. And 42 back for Kelly Causey, and 45 back in 10th for John Godfrey now.
So it looks like Causey, Godfrey, Martin, Sullins, and Hewlick. They would be the 5 drivers below the cut line heading into next week. However, there's only 20 points separating those 5 maximum from that cut line. So certainly can make that up points-wise next week. And we've already seen how the racetrack and pit road here at Talladega was able to shake up the first race, the first round.
You want to see how you want to see how Jeremy Jeffries is feeling after that?
Yeah, let's see if we can dial up our 3rd place finisher, 2nd highest playoff driver here tonight. Jeremy, Jess, and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
I do. Hello.
Well, I'll tell you what, we were trying to crunch a lot of numbers, work out a lot of scenarios there around the middle portion of this race. Looked like pit road had just as much to say in this playoff battle as the racetrack itself. a number of drivers, including yourself, not exactly getting the cleanest pit stops that they wanted. You almost fell a lap down. The caution saves you. You get back on the tail end lead lap and are able to fight your way up here into the podium. But up here in the booth, we certainly seem to feel the intensity for the playoff drivers wanting to get this postseason started off the right way. Could you feel the same thing down there in the cockpit of your Chevy?
Oh yeah, pressure was on, and we had some guys that had some bad luck early, so you feel like it's just pounce on it, capitalize, dig, just they kick them while they're down, I guess, kind of thing. If you maximize your finish when they have a horrible finish, that's just what you got to do in these playoffs.
Jeremy, almost a lap down, saved by the caution. Based on how we saw race 1 go, does your thought process change on what you gotta do in race 2 now? Knowing where you're at now, third, and it says you're third, tied for third with Keith Hughes, 14 back. You aren't locked in yet, but you're right there. So what's your plan? Go out there, win, try to dominate, get a lot of points, or just consistent, try to finish top 10?
I think my plan, depending on how the points shake out after the post-race reviews, is going to depend on that, because I did Schilling change lanes there at the end, and when that happened, I kind of got into the back of Melson. So, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to keep my third spot, to tell you the truth. So it's going to depend on what happens post-race review. But the plan of where I'm at right now is to just try to show up and have a good finish. But that plan could change within the next 7 days.
We were talking about this before we ended up going into our post-race wind down, about the fact that Burt Screwdriver's Raceway just got added onto the schedule here in season 58, alternating back and forth week after week. But with the way it's positioned, it's going to be the home of the elimination races, whether it's the round of 8, the final 4, or determining the championship at the end of the season. Have you had enough reps there, enough laps to kind of get used to the trends of that racetrack in preparation for the elimination race coming up, or are there still a couple of X factors that haven't quite been ironed out?
The trends are it's a lot cleaner race usually on that track, so doing stupid things like speeding in the pits will probably hurt more on that track than they did tonight. Like you said, I did get lucky there. I was a second away from going a lap down when the caution came out and got me back into it. But yeah, I think you're going to have to make sure you run pretty much a perfect race to have any chance there.
It's going to be really interesting to watch. It's going to be a hassle for us up here in the booth trying to crunch the numbers, figure out who's in, who's out, because we know the positions always seem to change not only every lap, but every turn when it comes to super speedway racing. But we're looking forward to it. Congratulations on the podium run here tonight. Before we let you go, the floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shout outs.
Well, first off, I want to apologize to Dave again for getting into him there. I was trying so hard to push him up there, especially when I saw the leaders break up. I was like, we got a chance of winning this thing. So, yeah, sorry to Dave, and I was really hoping to get him that win. He's had kind of a dismal season. Thank you to you broadcasters. Thanks for doing this every week, putting on a good show. I always love to watch it back later on that night. RTG, owners, admins, drivers, my XFM teammates, and the race winner, whoever it turns out to be. I'm still not sure.
Well, Jeremy Jeffries' third place finish here tonight in the playoff opener. Congratulations once again. Best of luck next week in what should be a doozy of an elimination race in the first round of this playoffs.
Yeah, thank you.
See if we can now get the driver that brings it home in second place here. 9 1,000ths of a second short of winning back-to-back races, Brian Schilling. Brian, it's Justin Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, man, I mean, last week, you won your way into the playoffs. You were already top 10, but got those nice little bonus points as well, winning the regular season finale. 1 week later, you almost lock yourself automatically into the round of 8. You come up just short, but you're a playoff driver. The 77, he's not battling in the playoffs. So, I mean, how nerve-wracking was that door bang and that photo finish to the line there? Because I know you wanted to win this thing, but at the same time, you want to keep that thing pointing in the right direction and get max points.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I could have been a little bit more aggressive, holding my line down there a little bit to keep him down there. But at the end of the day, I gotta at least protect myself. I mean, I was, doing what I could up there. At the end, when you're the leader like that, I knew I was a sitting duck. So I just, made the best of what I had, and prayed that I was still going the right direction.
Brian, good job finishing second and taking a nice little hit right there to Josh Mattock, trying to get in that little point lead there, and then that you guys are tied for that. You mentioned the big word of the night, aggressive. Did at any point, was there like any point in that whole race where there was no aggression going through anyone's mind, period, whatsoever? Because I was surprised, and I don't know about Seth, but I was surprised we didn't have more cautions, because it's the first opening round. Everyone wants to advance in the next round and whatnot. You got 2 races to do, so to dig yourself out of that hole real quick if you have it. I mean, I thought it was going to be aggression the whole night.
The part that I noticed, I mean, granted, it's hard when you're up in front, but from about lap 15 to 3, I would say I didn't feel like there was much. I wasn't getting much push from behind. I knew they were kind of trying to feel it out to try to get a run on me. They were hanging back in the corner, so I was actually, I was watching that, trying to, manage the gaps and everything, because I knew the move was going to be made. I figured it was going to be made sooner than 1 to go. It, you usually get craziness on the last lap or last couple laps, and you're going to want to make that move sooner. So,
well, I mean, only 1 or 2 main cautions. That wasn't too bad tonight. I was really shocked about that, Brian.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's that's why I was trying to play the fuel strategy there. That's actually what got me at the front towards the second half of the race. Was I only had to take a splash of fuel on that last yellow. So I leapfrogged a lot of people, because they had to put half a can or more in, and I just had to basically do a splash.
Well, if you remember that moment where we had that first caution with when Bob Seminara was right in front of you and he got involved, I thought the whole group behind Bob, like you and Chuck, I thought you guys were goners too, but luck happened and you got through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I put this about 10% skill, 90% luck, the majority of the time.
I would add to that 100% execution, because we just talked with Jeremy Jeffries talking about the fact that we're heading into Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. It's the first time ever that a track other than Talladega is going to be home to an elimination race, and it's going to be the elimination race for all 3 of our playoff rounds here in season 58. He said that most of the races we've run there, we've been in really long green flag runs. They've been relatively clean. Here today, we ended up, as just said, having only 2 cautions. A lot of the playoff drivers that we saw have issues. It was stuff that happened on pit road due to the lack of execution. So with that being said, how much emphasis are you going to put onto execution next week to try and not only advance into the round of 8, but also in preparation for if you're in a scenario of maybe must win to get into the final 4 or to eventually win the championship for the 2nd straight season?
I mean, it's controlled aggression. I mean, you basically have to. You can't be 100% all the time. And just mitigate the mistakes. I wasn't very aggressive getting on pit road, seeing I started last. So just made sure mistake free, efficient, and just pick my spots when I needed to be aggressive.
Well, you get the bonus point for being tied for leading the most laps here tonight. You get some really good points with finishing second. As just said, you're now tied with Josh Metallic for the overall points lead heading into that elimination race. Got a pretty nice cushion back there, about 30 some odd points back to that 8th in the standings. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what you're going to bring to the table in that elimination race. Maybe rack up a couple more bonus points with a victory and advance into that round of 8. But until then, we'll let you go, get yourself prepared for that race. But before we do that, the floor is yours. Time for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
All right, as usual, thank you to Sean Prime, David Cannon for what they do here. So many things happen that people don't know, that those two just do an awesome job with. Josh Metallic, Tim Nosker, Wiley, welcome back. Good to see you back. Hate to see what happened on lap 1. Admins for putting this on, Ultimate Garage Floors for sponsoring, RTG also for sponsoring. Thank you guys for doing the broadcast every week. Excellent job, always top notch.
That's Brian Schilling. Good start to his playoffs here tonight. Second place in the playoff opener. He'll look to advance into the round of 8 next week. Until then, Brian, enjoy your night. Good run, and best of luck next week at BSR.
Thank you.
And let's go down to Victory Lane and see if we can talk with tonight's winner, the driver, the number 77, Donnie Garrett. Donnie, Justin, Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I got you guys and ladies.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. I remember when I talked with you the last time you were up here after finishing the podium, you said, man, I want to get back to Victory Lane. I feel like I had one taken away from me early on in the season. Did it in dramatic fashion here tonight. 9/1000ths of a second, a photo finish. I think it's the closest finish of the season so far. It was between you and Brian Schilling. You got nothing to lose. You're just looking for checkered flags here to end out the season. He's battling for a playoff spot. Certainly looked like you wanted it more.
Oh yeah, I used him up, and I knew I could do that, and he wasn't going to fight that too hard. But second place for him is good. But I hate it for Joe, man. I hate what happened with Joe on the backstretch there. He swung up and then swung back down and just come across my nose, and I hate that more probably than anything tonight. And but hey, a win's a win, and we're going to celebrate it and have a good time with it.
Hey, Donnie, good job getting the win. Hopefully, overall everything at the very end stands this time, because I'm really excited to see that you actually get the win finally. So, overall here, pit road, like we were talking about a moment ago with Seth interviewing and all, it's like pit road has been really, really kind of the Achilles heel and the unexpected point. We're going to BSR next week. Have you had any Achilles heel at BSR itself, and how do you plan on approaching BSR, knowing that you already got a win and you're going for more wins? But how do you approach that, knowing that you're not in the playoffs, but you're competitive to be up there? How do you take the next race here?
I'll just go for it 100%. And it's my whole thing tonight was to help Joe get that win, and we had a plan there with one to go, what we were going to do, and we come up on a lap car or something, and everybody got to moving around, and it just didn't go how we wanted it. But we had Joe, and Bob was there all together, and we was hoping that was going to be a 1-2-3 finish for us, and unfortunately it didn't work out for them, but. At least Joe was, able to spin and then miss, I guess that big wreck happened, and I think he come back and got 10th. So I was happy, about that for him and all. But, I've been a little under the weather, so I'm not as excited as I normally am tonight, but, been a little under the weather this week and all. But yeah, we're going to celebrate this one. We're going to go for 5 more, not just 4 more. We're going to go for 5 more. And, there's 6 races in this thing, and, I want to win them all. I want to, or me and Tim and Chuck and guys like us that didn't make the playoffs, we're racing for respect now. And but hey, Seth, I got a question for you. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
All right, go for it.
Are you a betting man?
No, not really.
All right. Well, I'll ask you this question hypothetically.
Okay.
If someone came to you and said, I'm gonna bet you $10,000 that Chuck McClure, Tim Nosfer, and Donnie Garrett will not make the playoffs, and even expand it from 10 to 12, will not make the playoffs, I'll bet you $10,000. You take that bet?
No, absolutely not. We were talking about that actually during the broadcast of just how amazing it is that names that we were so used to seeing season after season didn't advance into the playoffs. Now, on the flip side, obviously, we'd love to see you guys battling for the championship, but it does kind of make it a little bit more exciting for us to watch you guys go out there kind of with the reins off, not having to worry about points.
Right, yeah, because we're 100% now. We're not 90, 95%. But it goes to show you the talent that's here.
Yeah.
I mean, the new talent, Keith Hughes. I mean, that guy's a stud, man. And I mean, that guy can just flat drive. And you got all these new guys coming in, the Rodney Sullins, John Goffrey's, all them guys that wasn't here a few years ago they're coming in and they're stepping up and they're getting wins and they're taking those spots. And it's just going to get tougher. I mean, when you go from 22, 23 cars a week to 36, 37, there's going to be a lot of people on the outside looking in. And unfortunately, it was me, Tim, and Chuck. And I don't know that that's ever happened since I've been racing here for probably 10 years. I don't think the three of us all of us at one time had never missed the playoffs. And it's awesome because I love the competition. I thrive on the competition. That's what I'm here for. And hey, if they can beat me square, man, I'm happy. But like I say, I want to beat them. And like I say, I want to win several races here during this playoffs and get my name out there.
It's made for some very interesting storylines. I guarantee you that. I want to just play off of something that you just said there. Just kind of touch on it. I'd like to go inside the head of the driver sometime. You talked about the fact that you were trying to help Joe, you were trying to help Bob advance into the playoffs, but at the same time, you're out there trying to win this race as well, trying to get this checkered flag. Is there a point in the race? Is there a specific point in the race after race, where you transition from teammate or drafting partner to then going all out for it yourself? Is it the white flag lap? Do you have to play it by ear based on circumstances, race after race? Is there a certain point that you've got in your head of, all right, I've helped as much as I can, all bets are off now, I'm in this for myself?
It depends on if I'm in the chase. I'm all for myself at the end. If I'm not in the chase, I'm going to help I'm going to help the guys that I consider teammates, and I'm going to be loyal to them because I expect that back. And if I'm in that position and they're out there and they hang me out, I'll never forget it, and I'll let them know about it, and I won't help them anymore if they do that to me. So it's a scratching back series, and if you don't have help here, you're not going to win. You cannot do this by yourself, unless you're Chuck Norris. Then you can do it by yourself. But anybody, I guess are going to laugh about that one. If you don't have help here, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to do anything, and you got to have 3 to 5 cars to advance and go forward. Sometimes you end up in a little group and they let you go on with them, but you really need people that are going to stick to you 100%. And if they'll stick to you 100%, but you got to give it back to them. You got to stick to them 100%. So it's a two-way street. And, that's what really attracted me to Bob and Joe is they, if they're with you, they're going to give you 100%. And I was giving him 100% tonight, man. And like I say, we just had that little deal there, but we talked about it after the race. He was fine. He's like, hey man, I finished 10th and, I think I come down on you. He goes, I think I swung up a little bit and then swing back down. I think you bumper hooked me. I listened to what Jessica said about the air and, how when he went up, I think Schilling came down a little bit and that pulled my air forward. So that gave me energy. And then he just come back down too late and come across my nose. So hopefully that's what gets called. But we'll see. I mean, these reviews have bit me in the ass several times and, we'll see, like I say, but again, there's, I can't wait till next Thursday. I can't wait till the next Thursday, and love having you guys up in the booth, and just love this racing.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. Oh.
I just want to point out, be careful about Chuck Norris. Remember, Bruce Lee beat him.
Barely.
Well, still, he beat him.
Well, we'll let you get back to celebrating here, Donnie. Congratulations on a job well done. Thrilling finish here tonight in the playoffs opener. But before we let you go, the floor is yours for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
Well, hey, I want to just apologize to Joe again, man. I hate that deal that happened there, but I think he we talked about it. He knows what happened. But I want to give it out to my great sponsor, Astro Glide. That old Astro Glide truck was slipping through the field tonight. And I forgot to mention this last week. I want to wish my wife a happy birthday. And we are leaving in the morning, going to take her to a Reba McEntire concert over the weekend. And so we're leaving in the morning to hit down to Charlottesville, Virginia. And so I forgot to give her that shout out last week because I was up there last week. But just give it up to RTG, all the owners, you guys do a great job up there in the booth. And can't wait to next week.
Donnie Garrett, your winner here tonight at Talladega.
Woo!
Yes, indeed. The Nature Boy gets it done here in the closest finish of the season. Congratulations on a job well done. Best of luck next week.
Woo, woo, woo.
And that is going to conclude our coverage here tonight. Jess, I want to pose a question to you here. with some of the drivers that are going to be heading into this elimination race either just above or just below the cut line, are you kind of nickel and diming points wise next week, or do you really have to, do you think, approach the race maybe as a must win situation and then wait and see once you get close to the end of the race of where you're at and then plan accordingly? Like, what kind of mentality do you go into that particular elimination race in if you're not at this point in time in a safe spot?
Well, so you're asking about the points here. Only the top 8 advance. You got the Spirit of 32 back, Grant right there holding 33 back, right?
Right.
Right now, you got 42 and 45 back, Kelly Causey and John Godfrey. At this point in time, if you're Grant, for example, you see where Despirito is, you see where Seminara is, you see where Kelly is, you see where Godfrey is. You sit there and say, okay, well, you know who's in front, you know who's behind you. Pay attention to your F2. Try to figure out about the other drivers that are hit and miss in your mind. But basically, you want to keep the 2 in front and 2 behind, in your mind at all times. But like I said earlier, you cannot completely focus the whole race on that, because if you do, your mind will get lost and, oh, there he is, I gotta beat him, whoa, well, guess what? You just screwed up, because while you're focusing on that, something happens. Other people go by you because you're too focused on one driver, and maybe 4 or 5 other drivers go by that you're not even paying attention to, that aren't even in the playoffs, but those are spots. Those are still positions. And it just knocks you out. Or maybe you're so focused and so determined to get to a certain area, you make a mistake. And next week, there can be no mistakes. You got to go out there with a cool head, know the situation, know who's in front, know who's in back, and just try to relax and run the race like you normally would.
And you mentioned it, no mistakes. We just heard from a driver, Jeremy Jeffries. He says, Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway this season, we've had the long green flag runs. The caution flag hasn't flown all that often. So if you do end up making those mistakes, there's not necessarily a guarantee that a caution is going to come out to be able to save you. And we saw that get some drivers into some trouble here tonight with this Talladega race.
Yeah, we saw Grant. I mean, Grant had that wave around at the end, but it would have been a completely different ball game if that caution had not flown when it did.
True. Yep. A number of drivers weren't even able to get back on the lead lap after some pit road issues, like Richard Martin and Doug Kulik. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. I believe of the drivers below the cut line heading into next week, Doug Kulik is the only driver that formally has a win at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, and that was the very first time we went there. He ended up having to make it maybe 100 feet to the start-finish line to pick up the caution. He had just come off pit road to pick up his first career win, so we might see something like that next week. We'll have to tune in and find out next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We also got to figure out at that point in time, during the BSR thing, like, we have a good idea that showing the metallic should be pretty much safe to advance. Yeah. So if we write those 2 off, our mind's got to be focused between pretty much 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Pretty much Rodney as well. I don't like having to rule out Doug, but at this point, without a win, that's going to be a tall order for him to climb at this point.
It really is, too, because we've gotten big fields week after week. We've had anywhere from 34 to 40 drivers. But I don't know why. It always seems like the playoff contenders seem to run around each other, and it's a lot easier to be able to gain 10, 12, 14 points than it is to be able to gain 3, 4, 5 points.
But the biggest throw-in at this point, the lotto cue.
Yes. Absolutely. And we've heard a lot of drivers comment on that, and we've wondered how that's going to play a factor into finishing results.
It's not just where you start at and having to go through the whole field. Like, for example, if you start near the back, you could miss Rex, but you got a tall order climb because you got to pass all these drivers, right? And there's a better chance you might get involved in a wreck. And the main issue is pit stops, because if you're last, you got that last stall. Oh, yeah, it's a nice little come in. Yeah, but all these drivers, and there is a little bit of a strategy. If you talk to a lot of drivers when they're pitting, they want to go as low as they can to get that little bit of an edge to cut the difference, because the shorter way around, a little bit faster, a little bit easier to come in. They usually hit that pit wall as well if they're not, fortunate enough to actually get there. But I mean, it's like your stall is right there. You're on the outside. You got to get down there coming in pit road, number one. Number two, when you come out, you got all these other drivers wanting to come in and come out at the same time. And if you're in the back there pitting, you have a higher chance of losing the draft. So you don't want to start in the back if you're, if you're a playoff driver at this point.
I believe it was Josh Metallic I talked with one time, and he said when you have a pit stall that is further back towards the entrance of pit road, it takes away that aspect of hot pitting because you have to get slowed down so much quicker than you would if you had a pit stall further up on pit road. So yeah, random qualifying, the new racetrack, some of the new drivers that we saw here tonight. It's all factoring in here in these playoffs.
And
it's going to be continuing to factor in.
And before we leave off, I do want to point out, before the incident with Chuck McClure and all what happened, I mean, Keith Hagley, he was doing a really good job tonight, along with Denny Carroll. Denny Carroll got the incident with Chuck, unfortunately, and Keith had that issue earlier on, but prior to that, they had a really good day, good night going for them, and based on that, I can't wait to see what they do moving forward.
Absolutely. Should be a good one next week. We whittled the field down from 13 to 8 to move on to the second round of the playoffs. It's our first elimination race. Hope you guys will join us for that next Thursday night. Green flag going to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Who advances and whose postseason comes to an early end? And will we see another non-playoff driver maybe pick up a checkered flag? We did so here tonight with Donnie Garrett capturing the first checkered flag of the playoffs, meaning that nobody yet is automatically locked into the next round.
And as we continue to go, the aggression and the pressure will build.
Oh,
and
next
the
week I
suspense
think
will
it's going to be aggression central.
No, the suspense is going to be killer. You know what? Maybe we should make a call to TNT, because we apparently might know drama too.
I think we might, because I think next week is going to be cannot miss. But Jess, it's been a great one here tonight to open up the playoffs. We saw a little bit of everything here tonight: green flag strategy, some interesting timing with.
What we didn't see is we did see a big accident at the end. Don't get me wrong, but what we did not see is a lot of cautions, luckily. So I wonder if this trend is going to keep on.
We'll have to wait and see. Should be interesting. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage here tonight, and we'll see you guys next week for our second playoff race of Season 58 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge. For Jessica Shelton, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday night, folks. We'll see you next week as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank